morning hours of June 25th, 1876, from a vantage point 14 miles east of where you now are, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer observed a large village of Lakota Sioux and Cheyenne encamped in the valley of the Little Bighorn River. From your position, the encampment was in the river valley to your front.
Sitting room, two women, and others, determined as never before to cling to the way of life. Flushed with their victory over General Crook at the Battle of the Rosebud just a few days before, the warriors danced and recounted their honorable war deed. The sagebrush-covered land slopes gently away from the ridge to the broad valley of the Little Bighorn. Across the river, down by the cottonwood trees, my people camped, their teepees arranged in circles along the riverbank for several miles. At this end of the camp were the lodges of the Northern Cheyenne, next to the Oowah Nah Sioux, led by Crazy Horse. Further upstream were the Sans Arc, the many Croziers, and the other Sioux tribes. Last in the order of march were the Hunkma tribes of Gall, Croking, and Sitting Bull. The 7th Cavalry met my people on this land one afternoon in June 1876.
From the Crow's Nest, a vantage point 14 miles away in the Wolf Mountains, Custer's Crow and Arrufat scouts saw evidence of the massive Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho encampment. Convinced that he was discovered, Custer abandoned plan for reconnaissance and a delayed attack. He divides his forces into 4 groups along Reno Creek, deciding to strike the village before it could scatter. As Custer's battalions approached the Little Bighorn Valley, he orders Major Marcus Reno with approximately 175 soldiers and scouts to cross the river and charge. Custer, with approximately 225 soldiers and scouts, veered to the northwest and appear on the ridge to your left for their first view of the village. After fording the Little Bighorn River 1 mile to your left, Reno's battalion gallops down the valley below. Convinced he is vastly outnumbered, Reno dismounts and forms a skirmish line across the valley floor, firing into the lodges. Warriors in great numbers rush forward to defend the village. Outflanked, Reno retreats into the timber. Sitting Bull directs surprised non-combatants to flee to the north and the west. Under mounting pressure, Reno abandons the timber. His retreat disintegrates into a rout as pursuing warriors ride in amongst the troops, killing more than 30 soldiers. Indian casualties are few. Lakotas and Cheyennes drive the cavalry across the river and up the steep bluffs to your left. Receiving words of other soldiers downstream to your right, they abandon Reno to meet the new threat to their village.
On the 26th of June, the soldiers in this defensive area came under deadly fire from the high hill several hundred yards to the north of where you are now standing. The warriors had the advantage of being able to look down into the exposed defensive positions held by the troops belonging to the united command of Major Reno and Captain Benteen. The encircled command quickly recognized how vulnerable they were to rifle fire from this high point, after several men were killed and wounded by accurate shots fired by unknown warriors. Captain Thomas French, commanding Company M, which held the position you are now standing on, asked his first sergeant, John Ryan, if there was anything he could do about the deadly fire coming from the hilltop. In his memoirs, the sergeant recalled the event in this way. I told the captain I would try it, as I had a 17-pound Sharpshooter telescope rifle, which I had made in Bismarck before the expedition started out.
From the ridge to your right, Custer's first views the village. Needing more information about the extent of the encampment, he moves further north. After witnessing the beginning of Reno's charge, Custer's 5 companies descend Cedar Coulee. the ravine to your immediate front. After Custer's destruction, this promontory was occupied by Lakota and Cheyenne warriors who poured a deadly and accurate fire into Reno and Benteen's besieged troops. Thus the name Sharpshooter Ridge. In an attempt to locate Custer, Company D under Captain Thomas Weir advances to this hilltop position without orders late on June 25th. Weir may have witnessed the conclusion of the battle 3 miles ahead. He is later joined by Captain Benteen and others. The Lakota and Cheyenne, returning from destroying all of Custer's immediate command, forced these troops to abandon this position in favor of their hilltop defense 1 mile south. After leaving Cedar Coulee, Custer descends toward the Little Bighorn in the ravine ahead known as Medicine Tail Coulee. Custer probably again divides his commands. 3 companies likely ascend to the higher ridges beyond. 2 companies approach the river along Medicine Tail Coulee. Near here, Custer sends back a message for Captain Benteen to be quick, quote unquote. Most warriors are still engaged with Reno in the valley, yet some are aware of Custer's advance. As soldiers descend Medicine Trail Coulee, the Miniconjou and Cheyenne camps were on the western bank. Archaeological evidence supports Indian testimony that initial fighting took place on the flats near the river to your left and cut back directly ahead. The Gray Horse Company, Company E, and possibly Company F approaches this area. Indian pressure quickly forces these troops to Battle Ridge. 3 Crow scouts who led Custer fired into the village from the bluff and before departing. After the brief encounter near the river, Custer's 2 companies retreat up the ravine to your right, known as Deep Coulee. The remainder of Custer's command skirmishes with warriors on the high ridge, a half a mile to your right. Seizing the initiative, Crow King Gall and Two Moons lead warriors in pursuit of retreating soldiers. Warriors ascend the large ravine behind you, pursuing Custer's troops. Soldiers retreat through the area to your front and right. Indians position themselves along the ridge to your left, known as the Greasy Grass Ridge. Archaeologists discovered numerous Indian cartridge casings in this area. This knoll was contested by Indians and soldiers. Some evidence indicates soldiers of Company C occupied this position since bodies of Sergeants Finkel and Finley were found here. Indian testimony suggests that Southern Cheyenne war leader Lame White Man led a charge near this ridge. Other theories place his assault near Deep Ravine below Last Stand Hill. After separate skirmishing, Custer's command reunites here. Company L under Lieutenant James Calhoun skirmishes with Gall, Crow King, Two Moons, and other warriors. From here, these soldiers could have attracted Captain Benteen's column and the pack train. A Lakota and Cheyenne charge overruns this hilltop and stampedes cavalry horses held in the ravine to your left. The Indian charge shatters the Calhoun defense and crashes through the soldier position at right, held by Captain Miles Keogh's Company I. Crazy Horse and White Bull cut down the retreating soldiers who flee northwest along this ridge in an effort to join the remnants of Custer's command on Last Stand Hill. Members of Company C and L were also found there. The hill in front of you was occupied by Lakota and Cheyenne during the fight on Last Stand Hill. An unknown Sioux warrior wearing a war bonnet was killed while firing his rifle at soldiers positioned behind a horse barricade on the crest of the ridge behind you. A soldier carbine fired ceased. Victorious warriors rushed the hill. After the battle, Sioux and Cheyenne removed their dead and buried them in teepees, scaffolds, and adjacent hillsides in the Little Bighorn Valley. Southern Cheyenne chief Lame White Man and Northern Cheyenne Noisy Walking fell below this ridge during the battle. Their families erected stone cairns to commemorate the casualty site of their loved ones. In 1916, Sioux and Cheyenne battle veterans showed Cheyenne historian John Stans in timber the cairns, and he in turn showed them to Don Rickey Jr., Custer Battlefield chief historian, in 1956. In 1958, the National Park Service erected a wooden sign along the ridge to identify the site of lame white man's death. On June 25, 1999, red granite markers were erected by the National Park Service adjacent to the cairns as fitting memorials and to help visitor understanding of known warrior casualty sites during the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
Northern Cheyenne warriors killed here during their heroic charge against Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer's command. These young boys, who had yet to gain brave war honors and deeds in battle with the enemy, were called suicide warriors. The Cheyenne recalled the suicide boys were all killed in action fighting the 7th Cavalry at the Battle of where Long Hair was wiped away.
By this time, all the soldiers were gone except a band of them at the west end of the ridge. They were hidden behind dead horses. Hundreds of thousands of warriors were all around them, creeping closer all the time. But the soldiers from where they were could not see the warriors, except as some Indian might jump up to shoot quickly and duck down. I got down a foot in the gulch. I let out my long wired rope for leading my horse, while I joined the warriors creeping up the slope toward the soldiers. When I went crawling up the slope, I could lie down and shoot. I could not see any particular soldier to shoot at, but I could see their dead horses, where the men were hiding. The shots kept coming from the soldiers. All the Indians then jumped up and rushed forward. The air was full of dust and smoke. Everybody was greatly excited. It looked like thousands of dogs might look if all of them were mixed together in a fight.
U.S. cavalry and Indian warrior horses were as much a part of the Battle of the Little Bighorn as were the human combatants. Many of these mounts were killed during the fighting.